Imagine the inauguration of the Colosseum. 50,000 citizens from senators to slaves packed into the marble stands anticipating the spectacle. The air was thick with the Mediterranean heat and a restless expectation, a primal hunger that transcended mere entertainment. This was not just a stadium. It was the engine room of imperial power, a place where myth and execution blurred, designed to teach obedience through atrocity. On that opening day, the emperor himself watched as a condemned woman was led into the arena. Her fate was engineered with cold precision, disguised as a macabre reenactment of the legend of Pasiphae, the queen who mythologically conceived a bull's offspring. The guards introduced a mechanical replica, a hollow wooden effigy. What followed was a public staged violation of dignity that shocked even the hardened poet Martial, who recorded the event for posterity. The applause of 50,000 people was not for the death itself, but for the performance of power. This singular act was merely the prelude to 100 consecutive days of organized spectacle. Rome did not stumble into cruelty. It industrialized it. The empire perfected the transformation of human suffering into state policy, ensuring that every citizen, willingly or unwillingly, became complicit in the collective roar. The numbers are chilling, yet they remain abstract. Historians estimate that across 4 centuries, the arenas consumed the lives of up to 400,000 humans and millions of animals. The population of an entire city vanished for applause. But the true horror was not the scale but the system. These deaths were not random acts of rage. They were scheduled, budgeted, and managed by a vast imperial bureaucracy. To sustain Emperor Titus's 100-day inaugural games, an immense logistical operation was required. 9,000 animals were sacrificed, demanding an intricate supply chain. Hunters in North Africa capturing lions, handlers navigating caravans across deserts, and ships transporting the beasts to Rome. This required expert architects, veterinary specialists, and administrative staff, all focused on one goal: maximizing the shock and spectacle of death. The philosopher Seneca, attending the games as an ordinary spectator, witnessed this systemic degradation and felt it corrupt his own spirit. He confessed later that he returned home more greedy, more cruel, more inhuman, because I have been among humans. He realized the arena's true function. It was a school of corruption, training the entire populace to find pleasure in the agony of others, eroding their capacity for empathy one spectacle at a time. The midday executions were a strategic masterstroke. After the morning staged animal hunts, but before the audience's lunch, came the damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. These were not warriors, but prisoners, slaves, and criminals, tied to stakes and facing wild animals that had been purposefully starved to maximize their aggression. Spectators would eat while watching the violence, normalizing the act of consuming sustenance alongside the spectacle of suffering. Rome understood that repetition dulls the edge of fear. To keep the audience captivated, the spectacle had to continually escalate, finding new forms of humiliation and death. The answer lay in the exotic and the unexpected. When Julius Caesar introduced the first giraffe execution in 46 BC, Romans had no word for the strange, elegant creature. They called it a camel leopard. The message was clear. Rome's power extended to the very limits of the known world, dragging creatures of wonder across continents only to destroy them in the sand. The animals were not appreciated as natural wonders. They were condemned as prey, demonstrating Rome's dominion over nature itself. Pliny the Elder later lamented that this insatiable demand was driving species toward regional extinction, turning the arena into an ecological wrecking ball. Yet, even the mass slaughter of exotic animals had its limits. The crowd demanded the unpredictable tension of human conflict. The popular image of the gladiator, 2 equal warriors fighting with honor, was a piece of imperial fiction. The reality was structured imbalance. Contests were frequently rigged, pitting untrained prisoners, sometimes dressed as clowns, against seasoned fighters, guaranteeing swift, humiliating slaughter disguised as competition. The equipment itself was a form of psychological torture. Heavy helmets narrowed vision, turning every movement into an agony, while intricate armor was designed not for protection, but for dramatic display. Many combatants were forced to impersonate Rome's defeated enemies, ensuring that their inevitable demise served as propaganda, a constant, visible reminder that resistance to imperial authority was futile. As the demand for novelty grew, Rome combined execution with theatrical art, forcing victims to perform their own demise through mythological reenactments. The condemned were cast as unwilling actors in plays where the ending was always death. Prisoners played the singer Orpheus only to be mauled by a bear, overturning the myth where his music charms the beasts. This was the genius of Rome's cruelty, the perversion of hope. A prisoner forced to play Daedalus was given crude mechanical wings, hoisted high above the arena, only to plummet to waiting predators below. The poet marshals dark jest about the scene, that the man must have wished for real feathers, underscores the horrific irony. The spectacle was the moment hope turned to terror. Rome then pushed the boundaries of engineering, asking, what if we brought the ocean to the arena? The answer was the Naumachia, or mock naval battles. Julius Caesar and later emperors engineered vast basins, flooding the space to stage full-scale maritime conflicts involving thousands of captives. These men were selected not to fight for victory, but to drown or be slain for spectacle. The famous phrase, morituri te salutant, or those who are about to die salute you, originated during one of Claudius's grandest Naumachiae. It became the immortalized, heartbreaking farewell spoken by men who knew their fate was sealed, a phrase we remember, separated from the crushing context of state-sanctioned entertainment. The arena floor could be flooded, drained, and reset for combat within hours, confirming that cruelty had become a matter of infrastructure. As the empire declined, the spectacles intensified. Women were forced into combat, sometimes against dwarfs or animals. Then came the introduction of execution by fire, with victims coated in pitch or oil and set ablaze as living torches during midday. This was not a quick death. It was prolonged agony endured while vendors sold wine and families watched, weaving extreme suffering into the fabric of daily life. The games continued until the empire itself began to fracture. When the Colosseum finally fell silent in the 5th century, reclaimed by ruin, the deeper question remained. Did the games cause Rome's fall, or were they merely the visible symptom of a terminal spiritual rot? Christian critics like Tertullian argued that an empire that cheered injustice as sport had already signed its own death warrant, calling the games seeds of cruelty. Economically, the constant escalation bankrupted the imperial treasury. Culturally, the relentless demand for bread and circuses, panem et circenses, destroyed the civic virtue that had defined the republic. Citizens, trained to demand distraction and violence, lost their commitment to discipline and self-governance. The poison of the arena did not stay contained within the stone walls. It seeped into the political and moral life of the entire civilization. The true tragedy of the Colosseum is not merely the fact of the deaths, but the collective choice to normalize them. Rome built an enduring legal system, magnificent architecture, and a vast road network, yet it chose to build its popular culture on the systematic destruction of human dignity. The empire did not merely consume its enemies, it consumed its own soul in front of 50,000 cheering citizens. Walking the silent ruins today, we are forced to confront the haunting lesson carved into the stone. A civilization that glorifies violence, that trains its people to watch suffering and applaud, inevitably crumbles beneath the weight of its own moral compromise. The arena was Rome's ultimate tool of control, demonstrating that power was absolute, resistance was impossible, and the human spirit could be broken, all for the sake of a spectacle. If you found this story thought-provoking, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more historical insights like this one.